Well, hey, everybody, it's Casey Jaycox with the Quarterback Dadcast. We are in season 6. I'm very grateful for today. I'm grateful for the chance to speak to our next guest, who I actually met through his wife at a conference, which is actually a really cool story. Um, our guest, though, he's a doctor. We're going to learn all about that in orthopedic, but he's a really hands-on dad. We're going to hear about the why behind that. He went to Northwestern, so he's a Wildcat. He also went to UCLA, so he's also a Bruin. But most importantly, he is a dad. And how I met him and heard about his story was through his wife, who shared a story about their daughter and a video, which is one of the cutest and genuine and authentic videos I've seen. And I somehow convinced our next guest, Jessy Sekhon, to get this video out in the world. And she was like, "No, I'm not doing it." And then I somehow convinced her, and then her LinkedIn blew up, and she had all these comments, and they said, "Oh my God, this is the best thing ever." And it was actually kind of cool to see her try it, but long-winded intro, everybody. We're here to talk to Jesse, the dad, and we're learning about how he's working hard to become an ultimate quarterback or leader of his household. So without further ado, Mr. Sekhon, welcome to the Quarterback Dadcast.
Thank you for having me. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, you bet. Well, we always start out with gratitude. So tell me what are you most grateful for as a dad today?
Well, two things to be very grateful for. One, as a dad and as a doctor, I'm always grateful for just the kids' health. That's a big part of my life, and just for them to be healthy is the number one. And then the second thing I'm very grateful for that may not necessarily pertain to the kids this year is I just got back from New Orleans where my Philadelphia Eagles won the Super Bowl.
Let's go.
So I was down there and just got back, and that was definitely a bucket list item. With some buddies that I grew up with, but walking around the Super Bowl there, I was like, God willing, we go again. It'll be a family trip.
I was lucky enough I went in 2006 when the Seahawks lost. And then I went in 2013 with my son and my wife, and we saw the Seahawks win their first Super Bowl, and bucket list, man. No regrets.
Oh yeah. It's, and it's, we talk about our husbands and our wives and how, we have that kind of mutual teamwork going. She pushed me. She's like, "Look, you're a diehard Eagles fan, and I'm on the computer, and tickets aren't cheap and hotels aren't cheap, and it was a last minute thing." And I was just like, this kind of hurts. She's like, "Just do it." She's like, "You don't spend any money on yourself. You don't treat yourself. You kind of dedicate to the family. Like, do something for yourself." And she pushed me to it, and it was a hard pill when I hit submit. But man, what a time, and definitely no regrets. Is unbelievable.
Well, congrats to you guys. We're recording in February. This episode will come out maybe in a month or so. What I'm grateful for is my son's coming home tomorrow from college. And for those that have gone through sending a kid to college, Jesse, I'll warn you, my man, it is brutal. But it's brutal, but it's also so cool to see them spread their wings. And then they come home for Christmas and you like, "Oh, he's back." And then he's gone again. So it's been 6 weeks. So we're so excited to see him tomorrow. And it's going to be he's home for my wife's birthday, his girlfriend's birthday. My daughter has 2 big high school playoff games this week. So he's going to see those. So it's going to be a packed.
How many days is he going to be here?
He'll be here till Sunday.
Okay. All right. So that's going to be a packed in trip for him.
This is going to be awesome. Yeah, we can't wait. So I don't know if he's more excited to see us or his dogs. So,
or his friends.
Right. Exactly. Well, cool. Well, you are also the first guest on the podcast to wear scrubs. So I feel like you should earn something.
Yeah, I just got back from work not too long ago. So I want to play the part.
It's like, these are OR scrubs. Oh, are they? I love that one liner. I can't remember what movie that's from, but okay. Tell me about the huddle. Tell me about the squad. Share with our listeners how did you and your bride meet, and then tell us a little bit about your inner huddle, your kids.
Well, I mean, she knew my wife is definitely CEO, general manager, president, all of that wrapped into one. We met when I was in my residency, in kind of a pseudo embarrassing but funny story. I met her on that was my 26th birthday at a club in Detroit. And we had a mutual friend introduce us. It was towards the end of the night, feeling my drinks a little bit. And she came up and she said, we know each other through that. And I was just literally taken aback. And so said some niceties, and she's like, all right, well, it was nice meeting you. I was like, whoa, hold on, time out. I was like, you have to give me your number. Like, you can't. She's like, well, I don't really give out my numbers to guys I just met. And I was like, okay, fine. Don't give me your number. Let's just make the date now. Tuesday, we're going to
Nicely
Starbucks,
done.
7 o'clock. And she's like, all right. And through the craziness of the club, she's like, we're going to go to the Starbucks on such and such road. And I was like, I don't really know where that is. I was like, just give me your number. Otherwise, I'm going to get lost. And so she gave me the number, and that was a Friday. And then Saturday, I called her and I said, look, there's supposed to be some 3-day rule that you're not supposed to call until 3 days. I was like, I'm calling. We're going to a movie tomorrow. Um,
Wow.
and the rest is history. Yeah, we just that was dated the residency, got married in towards the end of my residency in Detroit. Um, Spent a year apart when I was in LA, but she'd go back and forth, and then we moved to New York. And
Wow.
so, yeah, she's the rock. She holds us all together. She's super supportive and just a really good person with a great heart. So she's running the show, and then I got my two little ones. Well, not so little anymore. My son is Sean; he's 13. Just super warm kid, and just a smile that just lights up the room. Is big into basketball and singularly focused on basketball. So we just have really great conversations about sports and things of that nature. And you know, you get so caught up in the day to day of raising your kids and school and this and that sometimes you don't realize what the kids' impact are until somebody else tells you. And so we were with some friends of ours, and both the mom and the dad said, you know what, their son said the nicest thing about Sean. He's like, when Sean comes into school in the morning, if he's happy, we're all happy and we have a great day. And when he's not in a good mood, then we're always not in such a good mood. Like, he just, whatever his aura is, it's pervasive. And so just a real special kid. And then my daughter, Simi, is turning 10 tomorrow. Um, and just super, super special, just really uh, into all kinds of stuff. She's an artist. She likes to draw and do tons of art. She plays the piano, and she has a knack for sports also. So softball and basketball are big on her list of sports. So she just kind of, does it all and does it with a smile, and just real two special kids that we're just so grateful. But sometimes, you have to get that 36,000-foot view of just kind of how special they are, because you kind of get lost up in the grind of the day to day. So sometimes, you step back and you're like, wow, we're really lucky parents. So yeah, that's the crew. That's the team.
Well, you have some jealous dads out there that they're like, wait a minute, can you rewind this? Because did I hear your wife sent you to the Super Bowl and convinced you? Like wives, if you're listening, take advice from Sheenu.
I mean,
What an angel.
I was beyond lucky to have her in so many ways. And, that's how she is. She's like, look, how could you not go to the Super Bowl? She's like, this
It's a
is your
great
team,
question.
and we're fortunate enough to have the means to do it. And so, yeah, she's like, if you don't click that button, I'm going to. So yeah, she pushed me.
Now,
And
was Sean jealous?
he was, when the Eagles won that NFC championship, I get a text almost immediately. It's like, Dad, we should do a father-son trip to the Super Bowl. And I was like,
Get him in sales.
we're going to New Orleans, and we always do a away trip with some of my buddies that we've been Eagles fans since we were little kids. I was like, this year, let me do it with these guys, because this has been in the making. I was like, but sure, we'll do it again. The other thing too, by the way, is, and I told him this because I struggle with being able to do a lot of things, the kids being able to do a lot of things because we have the means, and not giving it to them all so quick. So like, you're 13. And I said this specifically, you peak at the Super Bowl. What else is there?
I know the feeling, dude. When Ryder, our son, was 7, his first NFL game, Jesse, was the Super Bowl.
Oh my goodness, at 7.
And he's the biggest diehard. So we wrapped this up as Christmas, his birthday, Easter. And we wrote a letter to him, and he opened it up, and we saw the video, and he saves it. He goes, it was like, here's the opportunity, but it'll be gone before you know it if any of these things happen. and we literally made him sign like an agreement with this type thing. And
I love that.
he sprinted off the couch, gave me a hug. I still can feel it that was 11 years ago. And I really worried about that because I was like, we were too very grateful to had the means to be able to go do it. But I was like, I don't want any regrets. Guy's a diehard Hawks fan. And so for us, it made sense of time and worked out. And he jokes that the next year we didn't go, obviously, because I didn't, like, that's not normal to go back to back. And so I go, when he was like, now he was like, what, 8, and he bawled his eyes out when they lost. He's like, Dad, I'm so glad. If I was now at 18, I probably would not have been safe to society knowing that what happened. And so he laughed about it.
Exactly.
But it's like memories. I mean, your buddies,
And to be fair, and again, it's what I struggle with a lot because, growing up, I didn't really have much, and these kids have a lot. And I want them to have experiences and all these things. But then if they get too much or it comes too easy, and then there's no appreciation for it. And so the other thing too is, he's more of a basketball guy. And so, for his birthday, he's a Clippers fan. I don't know how that happened, but he's like, I always wanted to see the Clippers play in LA. And his birthday's in August. We don't really get to do much because there's nobody around. And so he didn't really have a birthday party. He's like, Dad, I just, if we can make this happen, just father-son trip to a basketball game. And so, we did that. And I told him this time, I said, we will do this. And I was like, I know you like the Eagles, but you're not diehard. So let's earn it. Let's do one thing at a time. But yeah, it's a challenge. I want them to enjoy it. I want them to do that, but I don't. The problem is giving it to them all at once. Kind of want to work up to it just to make the experiences that much more special.
And then you keep them grounded and humbled. And well, I think that's a perfect segue because so everybody, I usually don't get the chance to talk to my guest twice. Usually it's first time, but we connected in December because he was like, "Wait a minute, what am I signing myself up for here?" And so Jesse was grateful to just get to know me a little bit, and I learned a little bit about him. So I'm going to ask you questions I learned before. So I know when we talked in December, we talked about like making sure we keep our kids humble, grounded, keep that grit, resilience, great skill sets in life. You talked about where your family, how you got to America, and some of these stories, which I was like blown away by. So I'd love to take us back to what was life like growing up for you, and a little bit about the life lessons your parents taught you.
Yeah, it's interesting. I guess those life lessons were, started even before I was born. My dad grew up in a small village in India. There's no electricity, but his brother realized that the only way to get out of the village was education. And so, they just singularly focused on my dad, and he studied, and he would be out in the fields, like in the cornfields, and they didn't have electricity, but he thought if he tied up some onions on a string, that could be a light bulb for him. And he would just like make this clearing in the fields, and he would just study. And so, he had that work ethic, and his family was exceedingly poor. There's nothing. And, like in the villages in those days, in the 50s, people would take your land, and there was so much strife going on in those times that they knew that education was the only way out. And so my mom had an arranged marriage in the 70s, and my mom's family happened to be, she's Indian also, but had been in Canada for some time. And so they moved to Toronto, where I was born in 76. And then moved to right outside Philly for work. And, the immigrant experience, as you may have heard, is different. He was not like, when you came from nothing and now you're in the States, and you're just trying to earn money, full stop.
Yeah.
And he was an engineer, and he just worked, and he was afraid that if he didn't, and we didn't have money, then, what would he have? And it wasn't even like money hungry. It was like money saving, like super frugal guy. And he's an engineer. He's in a new country. He doesn't necessarily know the cultures and the sport, none of that stuff. And so, but one thing that he always told us is like, we need to save money for your college. If there's anything that you need related to books or anything like that, he's like, I will spend it. And so this was like, I don't know, 86. And he bought the entire Encyclopedia Britannica collection, which was like $3,000 in those days. And I was like, I don't, we have encyclopedias at school. You don't need to buy. He's like, no. He's like, this I will spend. So we're surrounded by like all these books and stuff. Um, so, my upbringing was, pretty middle class, and it was just, watching him work. And so, from that, I got the concepts of work ethic. He was a perfectionist, so, had to do everything exactly perfectly. But, on the flip side, there wasn't, we weren't going to games, we weren't watching, sports together. And so, I kind of did a lot of that on own, but I'm really fortunate because my dad was this, quiet, or is a quiet engineering type immigrant. My mom, super gregarious, super outgoing, um, tons of friends, dancing at parties and stuff like that. And so I got the best of both. I got my dad's kind of work ethic and his intellect, but my mom's social nature. And so I remember growing up and be like, man, how lucky am I? That I got the best of both. And then how that plays into being a dad is you pick and choose. Like I want the kids to see the work ethic and things like that, but I also know what I didn't get. So on Mondays when the kids were talking about watching sports with their dad and doing this kind of American stuff, I didn't have that. And like I'll play basketball with my son. I'll play basketball in the dads leagues. So once the sport is over, the dads get together, they play the kids, dads versus kids, and I tell my son, I was like, look, I didn't get this. Like my dad wasn't playing sports with me. And so I try to pepper in, and I try not to overdo it. I mean, I feel like that's one of the challenges that I'm still trying to figure out. Like I feel like sometimes I'm teaching and I'm preaching and I'm trying to tell them, okay, this thing, that thing, work ethic, that sometimes I got to pull myself back and be like, all right, let's just enjoy the moment. Let's just have fun. Not everything has to be a lesson. Not everything has to be like, oh, this is how it was, in my day or your grandfather's day. So that's one of the challenges that I'm still trying to figure out is, how not to overdo it. Not everything has to be a lesson.
So I want to make sure that everyone grasps like what you just said. So most people who have listened to the show, I'll summarize or generalize, or I'm going to judge everybody, and a healthy judge, did not have a dad that grew up in a village without electricity. Like that is that when you told me that before, like it take me back to when we talked in December, like blew my mind. So like how does one even get access to the education in a village to be able to that's what blows my mind.
Yeah, I mean it's stepwise, and a lot of this stuff I didn't know till I was in my 20s. And we used to go to India every couple of years and you see family, but there was no life lessons. Again, you don't that mentality is okay, you just work and you don't talk about it. Okay? Like yes, I work, I'm going to provide for you, but there was no like father son moments of, oh, this is how it was, until probably my 20s. We were in the village and my dad showed me his school, his little one room school. And he's like, I would walk from here to there barefoot. And it was all just incremental. So you do a couple grades there, and then a lot of credit goes to my uncle, his older brother, who's kind of the patriarch. And he was like, look, we need to get you out of this school because it's not getting you where you need to be. And they go to another school a little bit further down, and it's just you're walking barefoot to that school, and you do that for a couple of years. And then he had the talent, and then just from there, okay, well, there's a city nearby, and so now you're going to go to this college in this city. It's like, okay, now you're doing that, now we're going to send you to another city to do more and more and more. And I didn't know the story until my mid-20s, and he just kind of like said, I don't know why all of a sudden he was open to talking about it, but then the floodgates are open.
Yeah.
This is how it was, and this is kind of the trials and tribulations, and this relative and that relative. And but it led to a very, very frugal life because you didn't know when the next piece of money was coming in. I mean, my grandmother, his mom, I mean, she would keep the bills so crispy clean. Like she would she would give us, like when we'd go there, and she'd give us like a little money, and she would take it out, and the money itself she'd probably had for 15, 20 years, and it was so clean and crisp because it was like, wait, this thing is, there's so much value here. And then she would give it, and it was like this big thing. And so that immigrant experience carries over here. And so, we didn't do a ton of vacations. We would do a road trip here or there, um, and so, all my friends are, they're going on ski trips and they're going to Disney World, this and that. And, we just kind of, me and my brother were just kind of at home in the summer times and working out and getting ready for sports and things of that nature. And then we went to Disneyland, Disney World, after I graduated high school. And I'll never forget, my dad goes, he's like, this is my one regret. He's like, I wish I had done this with you when you guys were kids. He's like, I didn't know any better. And I just wanted to save. And so that stuck with me. I was like, okay, I did want to do that when I was a kid, but we couldn't. So I'm going to make sure that my kids get to have these experiences.
Yeah.
Um,
And our mom and dad still with us?
they are, yep, yep. They're still
Very,
with us,
very cool.
and still, pretty sharp. The age, well, definitely takes a toll physically, but yeah, they're still with us, and my mom's up here and visiting from time to time. Loves to hang out with the kids, and it's fun to watch them do a lot of those things that they didn't necessarily get to do. Like I mean, I've never heard my dad say, "I love you so much. I love you so much," to the grandkids, because
Yeah.
those weren't words that come out of an engineer's mouth from India, in those days. So they get to kind of revisit some of those things that they may not have had when we were growing up. So that's really special. I love seeing that.
What type of engineer was he?
He he did a few. He was a mechanical engineer, and then he did some nuclear engineering as well. So yeah, he's definitely an intellectual guy, but outside of asking, where's this sport being played and what's going on, there was not, our conversations were academics and finances, even up till now. Okay, how the finances, do you do this? Do you have this retirement plan, this thing and that thing? And growing up, it was academics. Uh, Whereas with my mom, then can talk to her about, these friends are doing this and that. And it's funny. My freshman year at Northwestern, I joined a fraternity, and they had no idea what it was, and they were scared out of their mind. They're like, "You're going to join a cult?" She's like, "We're sending you to Northwestern, and you're joining a cult?" I was like, "Mom, it's not a cult. Like, it's just this thing." And they're like freaking out. I was like, and I told them, I was like, "I'm going to do it. Like, I want to do it." And they were just so nervous.
Oh
And
man.
it ended up okay, but they didn't know what that even was. So
I
these
would
are all these kind of like little things that popped up, throughout the years.
I would think it would have been hard for your dad. I don't know if you ever asked him this, but like, coming from where he came from, hard work, just, created this amazing opportunity. And now he's got to feel so proud seeing what you and Shino have done. But if he didn't play sports, because I've talked to some people who like their dads were hardcore academic growing up, and they're like, no, you're not playing sports, bro. Like, but the cool thing, he let you do it, and it was
Yeah,
a passion of yours.
it's true, for better or for worse. I don't think, because I was the kind of kid that just, if I knew that I wanted to do it, I would sign myself up. I would, just give me to practice. That's all I need to do, is give me to practice. I found a gym, and I'm like, all right, I can walk to the gym, and I'm going to train on my own. Like, there was no, extras, and they're just like, all right, I guess he's going to do it. But they came to one game, because they were nervous I was going to get hurt, so I didn't want to watch. Um, and so, you kind of, you'd accept those things, and you don't know any difference. You're just like, all right, I guess I'm going to play sports, and I'll tell them about it later.
Wow. So tell me when you thought you would get into medicine. Like, when did that passion happen?
That probably started. It started coming up in like eighth grade. It's crazy to say, but like eighth grade, ninth grade. I always liked sports, and I was just really getting into science. And then 10th grade, we did some, pig dissections and cat dissections. I'm like, I love this. And even in high school, I was like, look, I love sports and I love biology. I'm like, how can I combine these two? And I was like, all right, maybe I'll go into sports medicine. And I wrote my high school, college essay on being a sports medicine doctor. And I knew, which is also looking back kind of crazy to think about, but I knew I couldn't do anything else. And so I applied to these, medical programs where you get into college and med school simultaneously. I didn't even entertain any other possibilities. And so my whole thing has just been go, like from high school to college to med school to residency, it's you put your head down and you're like this, like just grinding. Um, because that's kind of was my nature, and that's how I did it for my training was 5, 6 years. College and med school was 7. So for 13 years, I just put my nose down and just went at it.
Wow.
Um,
It's pretty cool, man. Now, was out of curiosity, was Shinu's family, they'd been in America for a while?
they were
Migrate?
immigrants also. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. She's families. They have not too different of a story than actually my dad. Her dad also from a village, also no electricity, and ironically, I mean, they're in two neighboring states of India, but their villages have the same name, which we found out as he's like, what are the chances? And he's same thing. He was an engineer and he was a professor, and then came to Windsor, worked there for a while, then moved over to Detroit, and yeah, and he's an entrepreneur and an academic. And same sort of thing. You have that immigrant experience, and it's great for work ethic and pushing you, but there's other things that you kind of miss along the way from in terms of parental supports, and that's how we're trying to combine it for our kids. We want to be there for all those things that we didn't get, but don't want to lose the work ethic either, and that's a very precarious balancing point, at least for me personally. Like, I know how I was, and I see some of that in my kids, but it's different, and by no means do I expect them to be me at all. They're people, and but then sometimes I get this like anxiety that like, wait, when they're doing their homework, is like, I remember doing this, and they're not getting it like I think they should be getting it. And so then I start getting anxious, and then I have to back off because they can feel my anxiety because, and so I have to, I'm really working, I guess my project and I do accept them. Of course, they're my kids and I love them, but just accepting that they're going to progress through school and stuff at their own pace. And, I need to kind of tap the brakes a little bit because sometimes I get a little anxious because that was my thing, was
Yeah. So we've done a lot of episodes. I've interviewed almost 300 dads, Jesse, and like uh, sometimes, like with all like youth sports, is a perfect example where sometimes parents on accident they put their own goals on their own kids, or maybe it's academics too, and you forget that's like we know these things because we're got them. We're 48 years old. They're 13, 14, 15, 16, whatever the ages. So like they don't know the same mistakes. And I think the hardest part is like that. I think some of these generations, like maybe generation below us and then even younger, is they don't want to see their kids fail, which is where all the growth is. Like I don't know what made you, but like for me, I think I have multiple years, multiple examples of massive adversity, massive failure. But I don't remember my parents like going to talk to the coach or doing this or doing that. They were
yeah,
just like, it is what it is. And so like that's where you develop hard work and grit and toughness. And I think sometimes when you have to go through it, then you get to protect mode because you don't want to see your kids go through it. But then you got to remember, well, but that's how I got to how I am.
yeah, no, and God, that the titration point for that is so fine in terms of
I
going
know.
one way or the other. And you're right, and to be honest, it's not even whatever they decide to do, I'm 100% on board, supportive. I just remember the confidence that I would get from, knowing this fact or, being able to play this.
Mm-hmm.
And I want them to have that same confidence. Um, and so then I'm like, I get kind of worried, like, okay, if you're not doing this, then you're not going to have the confidence that I remember having.
Yep.
And then I just have to let them fail. And I'm all about adversity, I'm in terms of, how it builds character.
Yep.
I tell Shino all the time, I'm like, look, let's just let them figure it out. We don't have to be there on top of things, but it's definitely this push pull that's never consistent. I guess that's the life of a parent.
Yep. Well, I think it all makes sense now why you're an Eagles fan. I mean, there's no way. I mean, you got to be from a village with no electricity to become an Eagles fan. They want tough people. They don't want these soft Seahawk fans.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. We grind it out in Philly.
Oh man. Okay, so I want to before we go into this, one of the stories that was kind of interesting is Shinu is so I met for everybody. I met Jesse's wife Shinu at an event called Shout Out to Tech Serve, and I was they had me speak to like a smaller group, and then we met, and I was like, and she was one of the many people there that were really, really great people. Fast forward the story, I see her at a women's luncheon because one of my very first clients, shout out to Leslie Vickery, she runs this women's luncheon and it's very well attended. But they also there's like 4 or 5 guys every year, and it's like male allies, and I'm all about that. I have a daughter and I want her to have opportunities, so I was there supporting my fellow ladies, and she knew serendipitously got put at my table, and somehow she ends up sharing the story about the video you capture. And in my mind, immediately goes to like curiosity and vulnerability. I'm like, oh, I know exactly what we're doing this thing. And the look on her face when I said, I know exactly what you're going to do. And she's like, oh, hell no, that's not going to happen. I'm like, oh, yes, it is. And I'm like, I know we don't really know each other, but like, this is what connects people. So maybe just for the audience to share with us of that video and how you capture it, because it's pretty touching.
Yeah, I mean, a buddy of mine who has a daughter similar age, he's definitely one that likes to plan trips. And the four of us took an RV and we went around Lake Michigan. And it was probably July and it was gorgeous out and, long Michigan nights. And we just kind of sat down for some ice cream. And I think he might have been taping. And it was his idea to talk about who our role models were. And it was very, although he was taping it, the genesis of it was very natural. It wasn't like, okay,
Totally.
now we're going to do this. It was a conversation and he saw what was coming. So he just kind of hit record. And yeah, she's just talking about, what an amazing woman her mom is and what a role model it is. And it was just, yeah, it's just so touching. And we'll look back at it and there's no qualms. Like, yeah, mom, you're my role model.
Yeah.
Um,
Well,
so
it's
yeah,
cool. It didn't take her long. So then I think I challenged her, like that was maybe on like a Tuesday. And then I spoke on Wednesday, and I think she attended my session, and she came up afterwards and she goes, it's posted. I was like, what? Let's go. Um,
yeah. Sometimes she doesn't want to post a lot of those things. I gave her a lot of credit too, and people came up to us after. I was like, was that like some scripted thing? And I was like, no. I was like, let me just threw it up there.
yeah. I mean, it was so genuine. And that's the thing. It was so cool. It's like, and what a gift to be able to capture that. And that'll be cool to see when Sydney's later to be able to show her like, hey, do you remember saying this?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And God, just this age is just such a great age, and I'm sure they're all great ages. But you only know what you know, and
Mm-hmm.
they're just so pure, and they just say what's on their mind. And there's, God, is there anybody that's more present than a kid? That's they're in the moment,
Yeah.
and it's just, yeah. It's sometimes you look at it like, wow. I mean, to be in that moment and to feel that and it comes across like that is like
Yeah.
such a special thing on both sides.
Well, it only gets more fun, I will tell you. And as hard as the challenge of seeing the kid go to college, seeing like all the hard work that me and my wife Carrie did, and every parent does, and you hope that in the minor leagues before they go off to the majors, like sports analogy, like these off college now, like our hard, and it's not done, but like a lot of our hard work's done, and you hope we're just like, but it's been the most gratifying, amazing experience to see like the kid you create and then when they go away. And I've talked to many dads about this who have kids in college and are like, oh my God, that first year just blown away by the stuff we're talking about and questions they'll ask. And like of all things, my son, this one that really blew me away because he's like a big sports guy. He's actually liked school a lot more now he's in college, but he just typical like me, his dad didn't really apply himself in high school. You did enough to get by with a 3.4, 3.5. And he he sends me a text one day. He's like, hey, Dad, he was a picture of my book I wrote. He's like, hey, I'm reading your book. I'm like, do you even know how to read? And he's like, funny. And I'm like, it wasn't my idea, but like seeing those moments and then hear him say like, Dad, like I'm starting to see like some of these things you talk about, like just being a good listener or setting expectations and how like just getting ahead of things can make life pretty easy on yourself. I'm like, bro, you're 18. This is like, I'm like, yes, we're winning.
Yeah, exactly. We're throwing a party.
Oh,
A full circle moment right there. I mean,
right.
to hear your son say, "Dad, I'm reading your book," it's like, what?
I was like, I asked my wife, did you pay him to say that? Like, there's no way. But yeah, we're a proud dad. But okay, so one other thing I was really intrigued by your story. So orthopedic, you're kicking ass as a doctor in the New York, New Jersey area. She News doing her thing, you got two working parents, you're commuting, and I remember you finally said, "Hey, something's got to change here."
Yeah, I mean, my practice is in the city, and after a certain amount of time, my wife was like, "Look, we need to go to the suburbs. Like, I've had enough." And I was like, "Okay." I mean, wasn't crazy about it. I like where I was working, where we were living, etc. And we moved kind of in COVID, and there wasn't nobody was out on the roads, so it only added to my commute maybe 20 minutes. So it was no big deal. But then slowly but surely, people started going back to work, and the commute just started creeping up, creeping up. Pretty soon, it was an hour and 40 in, 2 hours coming home. It was brutal. And then my wife was like, "Look, we don't see you. And when you do come home, you're crabby because you just had a 2 hour commute. She's like, something's got to give." And so she was saying it. And, I looked at jobs locally where the commute wasn't as bad. But, in medicine, you set up your practice, and it takes time for the other doctors to know you, the families to know you, your patients to know you. And I had developed that. I really didn't want to start over in a new town where nobody knew me and have to, do all that again. Um, and so the turning point was Friday's my surgery day, and I was supposed to drop off my son at baseball practice. And he had never played baseball before. He'd done some basketball, but this is his first kind of foray into kind of formal sports, fourth grade. And I would warm up with him on the weekends and this that. And he's like, "Dad, this is X and Y practice. It's really important." And he's like, "Can you just meet me at practice and warm me up before we start?" I was like, "Sure." But surgery runs late or for whatever reason, and I realized I was going to miss it. So I told Sheena, I was like, "You have to take him." I was like, "Just bring a glove, just throw around with him." And she's like, "Okay." So she takes him there, and he's like, "Is Dad going to help me warm up?" And she's like, "No, he got held up in surgery." And she's like, "But I'll help you warm up." And so she gets out of the car, and he just stops her. He's like, "Sorry, Mom, it's just not the same." And he turned around and he walked to practice.
Mm.
And Sheena goes into the car. She's bawling, and she's calling me. She should do something different. And so I was just in a very fortuitous position where I told my practice, I said, "Look, I love working here. I love the patients. This commute is killing me, but I still want to be here to do this. Let's, come up with an arrangement." And it just got, things just kind of worked out, and it just became more efficient with the practice. And so I still go down there. I'm not going down every day. And, take some pay cuts with that. But I mean, knock on wood, I wouldn't have been able to do without Sheenu not only pushing me like she always does, but she's also very successful businesswoman, all this stuff. And she's like, "Look, this is the time that we need to be with the kids." And it kind of brought me back to when I was growing up, because my mom was working, my dad was working. I was just in the house, and so I was like, "This is it." I don't know how much longer the kids want to hang out with me, because pretty soon they'll be hanging out with their friends.
Yeah.
And I was like, "I need to be here now," and it's wonderful. I pick them up, drop them off to school on certain days. I pick them up. I'm catching games in the evenings. It's been really, really fantastic, and for as long as I can do it, I will. But yeah, there was just kind of I have been this grind mentality for so long, and then
Yeah.
you just kind of realize, like, wait a second, like that's what my dad was doing, and now I'm doing it, and the kids and Sheena are suffering. Um, you know, and for me, when I work, I'm not on a computer, I'm not on a phone, I'm talking to patients, and so I wasn't doing anything for the house. I'm not setting up camps or play dates or gross. I was just working. And so, she was running company and being the sole parent. And, just it reached a breaking point. And
Yeah.
now I love doing all that stuff. I love setting up their camps and, researching, what their activities are going to be. Um, and just being there. It's been the best, and I thought, my son's 13, and yeah, he's hanging out with his friends, but he's still, even today, he's like, "Dad, spring football is going to be starting up." He's like, "Once the snow's off the ground, we need to throw around a little bit." So I'm like, "Ah, like
The
this is what I
best.
want, you know?
Well, what I love about the story, Jesse, is a couple things. One, I think sometimes the male ego gets in the way, and we have this like false sense of what we have to do or what society says we have to do. And I've interviewed I mean, you're not a stay-at-home dad, but I've interviewed stay-at-home dads who they said, listen, my wife's a beast. She's going to go to work. You got way more skills, honey, than I do. But I think you being like the perception of a doctor or in medicine, you'd be like, sorry, I'm doing this, but you guys, both jobs are important. And you went into solution mode versus like blame or, oh, this sucks. It's like, no, let's figure it out. And I think it's amazing when you kind of go to your employer and kind of can try to figure things out a little bit. It's amazing they're going to do something for you. And I don't know if I shared the story with you, but when you said that story, it took me back to when my son was like 2.5, 2 maybe. And I was at the height of my career in the staffing industry, and things were great and everybody loved it. But I was miserable because I was getting home at 7 and I didn't get to see my kids before they went to bed. And I remember going to my boss, shout out to Angela Ronica, and I said, "And this sucks. Like, I know you guys love this. The team loves it, but I'm like miserable." And she's like, "Then leave it 4." I'm like, "It's not a bank. I can't leave at 4." She's like, "Why can't you?" I'm like, I don't know." And she's like, "Do you trust us?" I go, "Yeah." I go, "We got your back. Just be available on the drive home and just make sure that, emails are cleaned up at night, documentation, but go get." And it's like, what a gift a leader did for me, that now I like try to share those stories. And I'm like in my world of like executive and sales teams coaching, like, you can do it. If I did it, of all people, why can't you? And I hope maybe there's a doctor listening that says, what, you could do that? I'm like, why not?
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's the holy grail for sure. But everybody's and the other thing too is I might not have been able to do that. Timing was everything,
Mm-hmm.
early on in my career. Because if you're not accessible and available as a young physician, you're not going to get your practice off the ground. And I was with other doctors, but you need the experience of seeing the patients and doing the operations. And um, I wouldn't have wanted to do that early on, but after however many years of doing it, the timing just was right. And I'm fortuitous, and I'm sure there's some younger doctors like, wow, that I wish I could do that now, and I'm not sure I necessarily agree with that because there is timing. And then also, look, it's $150,000 when I went to med school, so you're paying off loans, and you're doing all that kind of stuff. So and it's probably even more now. So yeah, I think that just the timing worked out perfectly.
Mm.
Especially with the kids' ages. I mean, if they were older, I might have already missed the boat. Um, so it just, yeah, and you talk about grateful. I mean, I don't mind a 2 hour commute anymore, and I'll be driving, and I'm like, man, I just have it really, really good, and just get these moments of like, wow, I got it. Like it's definitely it's good. So
Good.
that
That's awesome.
gratitude comes in. Gratitude comes in all the time in different ways.
Yeah, there's a lot of people. One thing that I've adopted, and I've shared this with many people, like in 20, when we went through COVID, was a gratitude practice. So every morning, it's right here. I mean, people who are listening on the radio can't see it, but like, it's every morning. And it's
Wow.
like, I write and it's like, I can't wait to do it. And I find myself subconsciously smiling when I'm writing it. And usually it's like, God, thanks for waking me up today. And man, I'm grateful I just woke up. And just like, it's amazing when you start with the right mindset as a dad, like it just changes for me versus, oh, I got to do this, I got that. You're just like stressed out of the gate versus for me. I'm really glad people taught me that on the power of gratitude. And then there's some people I found that like either you kind of like, I don't, that's whatever, that's corny or whatever. I'm like, all right, that's your opinion. I'm proof that it works and it changes the mindset, changes. I don't know if it's chemically in your brain, but like it's amazing when you have gratitude, the negative, difficult times in your life don't seem as bad
That's
because
true.
you're looking for something to be positive for.
Are there repeats in that? Like, will you have like a couple days in a row where it's just the same
Oh yeah,
few things?
oh yeah. And sometimes it's like I thought about that war, but I'm like, but am I still grateful for an awesome wife? Am I still grateful for great kids? Am I still grateful that I get to do the work I'm doing now? Yeah. Well, I'm going to keep telling myself that. So that it reminds me when maybe when I don't have a great day or something, I get a curveball thrown at me. I'm like, but I love what I'm doing. And I mean, as corny as this is, Jesse, I feel like it's a calling. I'm not like a super religious person, but like but I'm very spiritual. I don't, but I just feel like this was what I'm meant to do right now. And there's like so many serendipitous signs or people I've met. I'm like, there's no way. Like it's just trippy stuff. But
Sometimes there's something to be said for the action of writing it. Like you can think it, and you can go through the 5 things that you're grateful for, but something about just writing it down solidifies it in a way chemically in your brain that's different than if you're just thinking about it. So I mean, definitely something there.
I 1000% agree with you. Okay, if you were to actually, you kind of mentioned it earlier, but I'll ask it maybe again. So, like one of the questions I like asking dads is if there's an area of your dad game that maybe you kind of talked about, me get anxious or something. Like for me, I have to work on patience as a competitive person. Like, but is there an area of your dad game that sometime that might relate to dads at home that like, it's not always your best, but at least you can admit it, and we can get dads to be humble and honest and say like, hey, this is an area of my game I'm going to work on to get better.
Oh yeah, I mean, I've been working the last couple of years. Definitely have patience, and also that acceptance part of it, and realizing that they're not going to approach things the way that I would necessarily approach it, and I'll be honest. Sometimes I raise my voice, yell at them. Why can't you just do it this way? And of course, Shinu's always been the voice of reach. Like you're not. It's not helping, and I know it's not helping, but I just get this like feeling inside that just like, guys,
Yeah.
come on, and homework or this or that, so I'm really like a trying to back off on that, and b I realize that in the past, and I feel guilty for it, that I was maybe too harsh on my son and yelling and screaming at him, and go back and apologize and be like, you know what,
Bingo.
I shouldn't have done that, and you're right, and it doesn't help, and I just want to let you know that I'm sorry. And I've done that, and I've done on multiple occasions. I do it more now than before, and I think he really appreciates it. And he's definitely a sharer. Like he likes to talk and share a lot of things, and so it makes me that way. And
Yeah.
now I share with him, and I'll tell him, remember that time I did that? I got really upset, and I'm like, I'm sorry. And
Yeah.
so that's kind of like I'm working on it.
That's
It's
gold.
not always easy. I'm all it's a work in project. Work in progress. But yeah, trying to stay calm. Just
Hmm.
it's fun. I don't know where I read this, but just how the kids mirror your emotions,
Yep.
and they know, like, even if I don't say anything to my son, he's like, "But you're mad. I can tell that you're mad." I'm like, "I'm not mad," And he's just like, "Dad, I know you're mad."
Hmm.
So just taking that beat, but I'm working on it. I'm working on it. Still not there, but trying to get better at that for
There's
sure.
not a manual for to be the perfect dad. I think that, but the fact that you admit it, that it speaks, dude. I used to struggle. I still do at times, but I think the gold in what you did is you apologized. And I think when and I actually did an interview early in like episode like 9 or 10 with my buddy Darren Ballmore. Shout out to D. And he talked about the power of saying sorry, because I think not only does it's good for you as the dad or us as the dad, but it also teaches the kids it's okay to say you're sorry.
Yeah,
So it's almost like you're actually providing out. I think perfect lead by example mentality. Because who doesn't? I mean, sometimes saying you're sorry is the best way for make a problem go away, and it like you kind of like forgive yourself. It's like we don't wake up meaning to be an asshole to somebody or
yeah,
ruining someone's day. It's like now it's almost embarrassing. But when we don't apologize, now it's like just makes us even a worse version of ourselves because all that anxiety stuck inside of us has nowhere to go.
yeah. It's funny. I tell my wife, like, give yourself some grace in whatever the thing is, and try to, and I definitely try to give it to the kids, but I'm trying to give it to myself a little bit more. Like, okay, just you know, let yourself make some mistakes, and
Yeah.
let yourself, learn from the way it was. But I mean, there was times like, God, did I just screw up my son by yelling at him so much, and all this kind of stuff, and what am I doing to him? And so yeah, definitely try to give myself some grace in terms of to going day by day, week by week.
Okay, before we get into some fun stuff, if you were to summarize what we've talked about today, that dads can maybe take from what we've talked about a lot. We've talked about I mean, a lot of really really cool things, and your story is fantastic. But if dads can take from your story, things we both shared, maybe call it 2 or 3 actionable things they can take away from what we talked about, they can apply in their own life to maybe kind of improve their leadership skills inside their home. Tell me what comes to mind.
Definitely acceptance. Accept that these little guys are going to do what's right for them, and they're going to figure it out. And I guess just trust the process, as they say. Um, so definitely that, and just God, just being present with them. Just even if it's for a couple minutes, it's the best. I'll read with my daughter at night, and I'll read the paper, and she'll read her book, and she'll look it over. Like, oh, what article are you reading? It's like, even for 10 minutes, we're just talking about the news or whatever it is. It's magic. And so just trying to be present, and yeah, just the acceptance part. That's where I'm really trying to get better at.
That's a good one. Solid, man. Well, um, so now it's time. Oh, actually, take the back. I want to now make sure that we highlight you and your practice. And if there's people living in the Northeast, someone's got a bum knee, a bum shoulder, they're like, God, I wish there was a good orthopedic I can go find. And how can we make people aware of you and your colleagues if they're
Yeah, I mean, I think probably the easiest is just plain old Google Dr. Sekhon, Sekhon, and it'll kind of take you around to the different sites that I'm affiliated with. But yeah, I'm happy to help anybody.
cool? And what's the name of the practice?
The hospital is Maimonides Hospital.
Okay. Awesome. All right. It is now time to go into the lightning round, Jesse, where I go completely random. I'm going to show you the negative effects of taking too many hits, not bong hits, but football hits in college. Your job is to answer these questions as quickly as you can, and my job is to try to get a giggle out of you.
Got it. I'm going to lose right away.
I might lose. Well, I laugh at my own joke, so it's like I already lose.
Same.
Well, have you seen the movie Spies Like Us?
Oh man, long time ago. Don't remember too much of it, but I remember. Is that Dan Aykroyd?
Dan Aykroyd and Bill Murray. They're one of the greatest, and Chevy Chase. Actually, Chevy Chase and Dan Aykroyd. One of the greatest lines. They actually were. I think they were in India as FBI agents. No, that one. Oh yes, that part. When they did the first step of a procedure like this is shave the patient. But the question, when you go into surgery, how many times do you say doctor, and doctor?
All the time. It's funny. The other thing in terms of being mindful, which I've also started to do, is it used to I'd approach surgery as a sport, where I would right before I'd go through like all the steps, and I realized that I already now what I do is I go through the steps way early, and so when I'm scrubbing right before, just clear my mind and just think about, okay, what's the water feel like on my hands? What sounds am I hearing? So that when you go in, clear head. But yeah, you realize all these different things that can apply to other parts of life are just as equally as important in surgery.
Totally.
Yeah.
Love it. Tell me your favorite movie of all time.
Godfather series.
Okay.
1 and 2. Classics.
Favorite comedy of all time.
Dumb and Dumber's got to be up there.
It's telling me there's a chance.
That's right. I love it.
Sunshine good. State.
Yeah.
If I was to come to your house for dinner tonight, what will we have?
It was Taco Tuesdays at the Sekhon household tonight.
Okay. Sounds nice and tasty. If I went into your phone and we went to the physician's office, what would be the one song that might surprise your colleagues you listen to?
They know that I listen to reggae in the operating room. There's something about it just kind of like puts me in this Zen state. And, there's sometimes like my co-surgeons or other people like in another operating room, and they come in and it's the same reggae.
Do you ever adopt a reggae accent in surgery?
No, but where I work, there's a lot of West Indians and they love it too. So
okay,
we're having a good time in there.
You're like my scalpel man, pasta scalpel man. Okay, if you were to go on vacation right now, just you and Chinook, sorry kids, you're staying home. Where are we going?
We have to be Italy.
Okay.
We haven't spent too much time there. We've always wanted to go.
Okay. If there was to be a book written about your life, tell me the title.
That's a tough one. Getting Better.
Okay, there we go. Now, Jesse, Getting Better. I've told all my friends about it. We can't get a copy of it because things selling out. It can't get on Amazon. They can't print enough. It's in Barnes & Noble sold out. All airports, it's freaking gone. So Netflix has found out about it. They're going to make a movie. You're the casting director. I need to know who's going to star Jessy Sekhon in this critically a hit new movie.
Oh, Will Smith, for sure.
There we go. There we go.
Easy.
There we go. All right. And then last question. Tell me 2 words that would describe your wife.
Oh, wow. Loving, supportive, beautiful. I can choose too short.
Those are hyphenated. We're going to make them
Yeah,
cursive.
exactly. Exactly. Lovingly beautiful and supportive.
There we go. All right, man. Lightning round's over. This has been a blast. Your story is freaking so cool. Your wife's fantastic. Your kids sound fantastic. Your dad is just, I've never met the guy. I don't know if I ever will, but man, what an inspiring dude. To just the opportunity to give your family, and shout out to your uncle too for seeing the wise, or I mean, the skills in his younger brother. I want to say thank you to our sponsors. Thank you, everybody who continues to listen. If this episode has piqued your interest and you feel like you have time to leave us a review on wherever you consume your podcast, that would be a huge gift. Or if you want to share this with a friend that you think might inspire another dad to kind of lead into that professional development of fatherhood and just working hard to become better, please share with them, because this podcast, for everybody that it is a project, and I get free therapy out of every episode. And this is not the revenue generating in the household. This is just a way to serve, and it is by far one of my favorite things I get to do. And I don't know how long I'll do it. The more people support and keep listening, the more longer we'll keep doing it. But I just want to say thank you, Jesse, for your time, for your story, and thank you for everybody who continues to listen. I hope to talk to you soon, man.
So great. Awesome. Great time. Take care.